Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Sunday for Sunday, April 3rd, 2022. We've got members of the media, academia, and financial services standing by to analyze all the news and events this week in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode of BRN Sunday.
We're going to kick things off with a look at what's happening on Capitol Hill, and there's a lot to talk about these days. Joining us on the line to break it down, they're known as the Legal Eagles, but they're also known as David Levine, Kevin Walsh. Both are principals with Groom Law Group, an employee benefits law firm based in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jeff. It's always good to be on the show. And, talking to you here from D.C., where, it's an election year. And once we've gotten past cherry blossoms and until the summer, we know it's legislation season.
Hey, Kevin, you're stealing all the thunder here. Although it's very weird. Kevin and I are in the same spot for once.
That's pretty cool. So who wants to break it? I know we want to talk about Secure 2.0. Who wants to start and break it down for us? The House voted this week. Big news, very important legislation.
I guess I'll dive in, Jeff. I think we're back in the land of Christmas tree legislation. That's the way I always like to talk about it. Secure 2.0 brings together so many different concepts. We could spend weeks and weeks, and we have to thank our friends in Congress for giving the Eagles topics for weeks and weeks. But out of the box, it has a number of pieces, like automatic enrollment requirement going forward, rules for long-term part-time employees. It has 403Bs and CITs. But
David, instead of just rattling these off at a high level, do you want to pick like one or two provisions
Fine.
to provide a little more cover? Because unless the listeners here are well into the weeds like you are, you're just rattling off letters and acronyms like a true DC insider.
Well, you know that there is a podcast, there is like a video podcast where they make you drink every time you use an acronym. So that's a very good point. That's a call out for the Retireaholics, Jeff, but we love you more. But
It's okay.
the real
We're all on the
takeaway
same. We're all on the same side. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, actually, we love you both. But all right, let me pick something that I think is a big one. The big one is 403B and collective investment trusts. Historically, 403B retirement plans, like your tax-deferred annuities, have only been allowed, except for a small subset, to invest in annuity contracts and custodial accounts. Custodial accounts basically meaning mutual funds was the main world. Over the past many years, and we've talked about this before, you've seen the rise of collective investment trusts or group trusts, which is basically collective investment vehicles where people invest through a trustee. And often these vehicles have lower fees and lower costs. And they've been used widely at the upper market, but they've in the mid and even smaller market now. Their 403Bs have wanted to be on equal footing for a long time in this space. And a number of folks, and we've been very active in this space specifically with others, have wanted to say the 403Bs could invest in collective investment trusts. And there is language in Secure 2.0 as passed by the House that changes the 403B rules to say you can invest in what's a group trust as recognized by the IRS. Now, there are some very funky securities law rules about who's the investor and look-throughs that you get into in 403B land. They were removed from Secure 2.0 right before it got enacted. We expect that it will come back in the Senate and will be sort of more comprehensive. But in the end, it shows a path towards 403B plans having equal access to diversifying investments through CITs in equivalence with the 401k market. And I said that just to make Kevin Walsh laugh.
So David, you did a great job of highlighting one provision that is, it's fairly wonky because you've got to understand between a 403B plan and a 401k plan, a mutual fund and a CIT. I'm going to quickly, in less time than it took you to do that one, hit on.
Wait. You just made me do one in detail.
Hit on four changes that'll impact retirement savers directly and that I think they'll understand pretty quickly. So
thanks, Kevin.
One of the changes is that it's going to increase the amount of money that individuals who are between 62 and 64 can contribute in catch-up contributions.
But Kevin, isn't there an issue with that?
Well, there's issues with everything, David.
Yeah, but the issue with that is the catch-up contributions. You got to pay for legislation sometimes. So you're going to have to pay for it with after-tax dollars.
getting folks to save more money, though, I think it's a laudable aim a lot of the time. So the second change is that it's going to increase the required minimum distribution age. So this seems to be done in just about every one of these bills. It's currently 72, and it's going to be phased up all the way to 75. So if you're a 74-year-old in 2033, you won't be required to take money out of your 401k account. A third change that's a big deal to young savers is that it's going to allow employers to match student loan contribution repayments. One of the things that we've heard in the last 10, 15 years is that folks don't start saving early for retirement because they're stuck paying back their student loans. This would allow employers to make contributions.
I'm just laughing here, Kevin, because you told me to not go high and fast, but you're going shallow and fast here.
I think they're easy to understand, shallow and fast, though. And there are things that, if you're listening to this, and you're a 25-year-old retirement saver, very interested in retirement, you haven't been able to contribute because you've got student loan debt.
But Kevin, I'm going to trump you here. I got one that's even easier.
All right, let's wrap it up with your easier one, David.
Fine.
Out of here for today.
Fine. We'll call it a day after this. The IRA catch-up limit. If you're over age 50, right now you can right now that number for catch-ups hasn't changed in forever. It's going to make it start increasing with inflation. So that means people over 50 will be able to put more money in their IRAs. And I said that faster than one of yours, Kevin.
Well, hopefully by the time I'm 50, then those indexes will go up pretty high, so I can secure my own retirement. Oh. I think David, next week we'll have to talk about Rothing employer contributions, but I think we're out of time for the day.
Thanks, Kevin, because I wanted to go there. Thanks for cutting me off.
Well, real quick, guys. So you mentioned it's got to go to got to go to the Senate. So I want to give people the process here. Passes the House. I think it was a near unanimous. I think there were a couple of 5 votes that people went the other way. But now let's get us to the Senate. The Senate's probably going to do its thing, come up with a competing bill, and then they got to go to a conference. Is that what we can expect to happen?
The answer, fine. Kevin didn't jump in, so I'll take it. Yes, because the Senate's going to make changes. They're going to have hearings. It's not going to be passed immediately. They've got other things they want. Automatic enrollment requirements may or may not be popular in the end in the Senate. There's other legislation or other pieces that could get folded in as we go forward. So either A, they'll ping pong it back and forth, or they'll go to conference, which is really rare these days. Or they'll just say, hey, we need to stick it on some big bill, and everybody will pass it and sign it, and we'll move on.
Yeah, no one has ever gotten broke betting that it's going to take longer to pass legislation.
So is it, we've got it's election season. It's a crazy season, right? And we've got November elections. And is there a likelihood that this is what the summer is going to be about? We're going to get something before they go on break and go back to campaigning?
I think if we're still talking about this in August, it's unlikely that it's going to move until
lame duck
after the elections. So I think we may get a little bit of a respite in August from worrying about this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would be looking May to June period for if you want to see something moving. If not, don't count your chickens out. Don't count that. Mixing metaphors. Don't count yourself out, because in December when they come back in the lame duck, no matter who wins in November, there might be some desire to prove they can do something after the fact.
Yeah, and well, guys, thank you so much for that. And I guess for people out there listening and they want to learn more, they can certainly go out to the Legal Eagles website. That's the Groom Law website. Learn more. But they can also call their members of Congress. You can go out and look up who your member of or your senator is, I guess, because it's already passed the Congress. And they can, I guess, try to have some influence, guys. Gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for stopping by the show. Some good news, I think, and gives us a lot of fodder to talk about over the next couple of weeks. Have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Bye, boys. Welcome back, and now time to talk technology, consumer products, and a lot more. Joining us on the line, he is the managing editor for The Street, Daniel Klein. Dan, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Very big day for me. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. Got some big things, personal things that you're working on, so congratulations there. All right, Dan, let's talk about spoofing. And I had sent you something that I had received from one of our viewers questioning what spoofing is. How do you prevent it? So before we talk about preventing it, what exactly is spoofing and who's impacted by spoofing?
So, when you get a phone call and it looks like it's coming from where you live, so you think logically like, hey, like that's my area code, it's my town, that's probably a real call. Like maybe it's a person I called and they're calling me back from a different number. And then it turns out to be someone who's trying to sell you a roof, a car repair, give you a free trip, who knows what it is. That's spoofing. And it's when they're using a number that seems credible and it somehow breaks through the iPhone detector where you get, as I often joke, from calls from my Swedish friend, Skam Kelly, which of course is scam likely. It breaks through that and it looks like a real number. And the goal, of course, is to get your personal information. And I will share one tip here. Nothing good ever happens through the mail or over the phone. So if someone has really good news for you, they're going to find a really direct way to honestly contact you that will involve you reaching out to them, not them reaching out to you. So if somebody calls you and says you won something and you didn't enter anything, that is almost certainly a lie.
Dan, when you get a bad email or a spam email, generally you can go into the email domain and you can look and see from what domain it's from, right? So if it's Amazon.com or it's AmazonX1.com, right? You can tell the difference.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, with a phone call, they're actually mimicking real phone numbers here. This is scary.
Yeah, it is scary. But here, with anything, you have to think about, is this something I initiated? So, if you pick up the phone, and I have to answer my phone more than most people do because a lot of times public relations people, as I'm sure you know, Jeff, public relations people come up as block numbers because they're calling from like a big office and maybe the core number ends in like 8,000 and that triggers the spit. So I'm picking things up and 9 times out of 10, it's nothing real, but the other time it turns out to be. But you need to be really skeptical here. And if you didn't make a phone call in your area code, or you pick up and it's not your friend or your aunt or your business relationship or whatever it is, recognize that it's almost certainly fake or fundraising or something you don't want. And if it says it's from someplace that you do business, hang up, tell them, hey, I'll call you back. Look up their number and call them. Because if you initiate the call, at least you know it's real.
This is scary. Last week I think we talked about deep fakes, or maybe it was the week prior, maybe whatever. They're all run together. So we talked about deep fakes and how people are falling for AI generated video. Okay. Now here on the other flip side, the phone that we're all very familiar with, we all use the phone, and they can spoof Jeff Snyder calling Dan Klein, and the only thing that prevents you, from knowing that it's not me is you can listen to the voice on the other line. And if it's got a Baltimore accent with deep O's, that's probably me. But again, you want to really work hard to kind of prevent this. And who's really vulnerable here, Dan? Older people. People, maybe they don't hear that well, right?
Yeah, we've all seen, it was actually a Simpsons episode a couple of weeks ago where somebody called Grandpa Simpson and said that Bart was in jail and he needed to send money. And of course he fell for it. The reality is, even if that's the case, put down the phone, find the real number, and call back and ask the question. Or call the person that's allegedly involved and see if they answer. Be very skeptical about everything. And the reality is, nothing legitimate that you didn't initiate ever asks you for your social security number or a credit card. I'm in the midst of doing a wire transfer, and you have to go into a secure platform. Even if your credit card company, calls and says, hey, you owe us $100, you can go to the website or your app or whatever and see if you do and pay that. Everything needs to be initiated by you. So, think logically. If somebody calls you and tells you, oh my God, your spouse is in trouble, her car broke down, and they asked you to call her, they asked, for that person to call you and ask you for this, that doesn't seem logical. Why wouldn't your spouse be on the phone? Don't trust and verify.
Well, really good advice. All right, Dan, let's have a little fun story here. There is a restaurant in Jersey City, New Jersey, where I used to live at the Newport Mall. I didn't live at the Newport Mall, but I lived in Jersey City, just for clarity purposes. That is automating burgers. This is an interesting story. You brought this to me. Tell us a little bit about who the burger joint is, to use the old 50s vernacular, And what can we expect if we go there?
So you get a really unappealing burger made by a robot. And that's not the interesting part of this. So you're going to see a lot of stories in the coming years about jobs being automated. You've already seen a lot. I've requested so many graphics of like robots working at McDonald's. My photo department's angry at me. But with that being said, there's a kernel of truth here, but there's also a bit of a ridiculous. So can you automate certain things? Like, yeah, a big part of like the Domino's process is pretty automated as it goes through the oven, but there's still people involved. So where is RoboBurger going to be valuable? Well, if it's 2 a.m. and you're at the airport and everything is closed, it'll be pretty cool to be able to go to a robot vending machine and get a somewhat fresh pizza or burger or whatever it might be. And will it be okay? It'll probably be okay. And it'll certainly be better than the Snickers bar you could have bought at a vending machine previously. You're also going to see automation at the higher end, and by higher end, I mean more successful fast food chains. So could McDonald's automate the fry machine? Absolutely. But you're not going to see this sort of like robots take over. It's very expensive. It lacks some of the personalization. But we are going to see things like Starbucks-like kiosks. We've already seen those in some airports where you order on your phone and it makes you a perfectly serviceable coffee. That's kind of where RoboBurger, where these things are going to come in, where it's like, yeah, is it as good as going to Five Guys or In-N-Out? No, probably not. But does it fill a specific need? Are we going to see them on college campuses, airports, maybe even stadiums, other places with high volumes but sort of weird usage patterns? So the reason I brought this story up is really just to like pump the brakes a little bit on the idea that all of a sudden like every Wendy's is going to go to like 100% robots. Like I don't expect that to happen.
And I don't either. I don't think anyone does, because you still need someone to take the cash. You still need someone to work out if kinks, and there always are going to be people who want, hey, like me, who don't want pickles or don't want onions on their food, and they get it, and they're gonna want it changed up. Dan, I have to ask you this because you brought up Robo Burger. I immediately thought of RoboCop. Do you remember the movie RoboCop with Peter Weller and Nancy Allen? I think was in it, and Ronnie Cox.
I do.
Go ahead.
Few people also know that RoboCop was also an espresso machine. That was part of his robot powers.
I did not know that. But do you remember how he had the prime directives? Or more recently in iRobot, the movie, there were the 3 laws. I mean, is there going to be something there that says a hamburger cannot hurt a human being?
So you brought up something earlier that I never really considered, because when you order from a robot, in theory, your order is going to be perfect. I've talked to you about my experience a few years ago ordering a robot drink in Vegas and how it over-poured my gin and tonic and gave me a sticky mess. I since a few months ago got a robot drink on Royal Caribbean's Odyssey of the Seas, and it was lovely. So in theory, when you order no pickles, half cheese, or whatever ridiculous order, the robot should get it right. But you brought up what happens when there's human error. You forget to say no pickles, and you absolutely hate pickles. Well, there's no real way to stuff the burger back into the machine and get it corrected. So there are absolutely some problems that come with this. On the other hand, one of the things we've seen with kiosk-based ordering is it takes the people out of it. When you order your ridiculous half-calf, double froth, extra honey, whatever Starbucks order, when you say that to a person, there's every possibility they hear you wrong and double something you wanted halved. When you do it on an app, there's a lot more precision there. So there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of robots. But I do think personal interaction matters. Like, I'm not sure I want to go to my Starbucks and just have like a screen beep hello. I want to see the familiar face of a barista. I don't think I answered your question there, Jeff, but I talked a lot.
I think it was good, and I think you took it in a little bit different direction, which is fine. I mean, Dan, just going back to our story last week about deep fakes, they could just fake a barista. They can fake that person in the video window, right? And maybe you would be fooled. So go ahead.
I think they can, but in a lot of ways, this is like if you made the argument, will fast food replace fine dining? It's more convenient, it's cheaper. Well, okay, but all of it in its place. Are there going to be times where you just desperately want a decent cup of coffee and a Robo Coffee or a Robo Burger is going to work? Absolutely. Are there going to be times where you want a cafe element and people, or a nice sit-down burger, or whatever it is? I think there's going to be places for both of these, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to go sit down for like your nice steak dinner at Morton's and have like a robo waiter and a robo cook be part of that, because there's an ambiance, there's an experience, there's a reason it's more pleasant to deal with like a human checkout than to do self-checkout. So all of this technology, we're going to have to find sort of like where it fits and how it fits. We've seen like robots for inventory are awesome. Robots to serve you, not so much. Robots to vacuum, really good. Robot assistants, we're not there yet. So there's really some technology gains to happen, but also maybe having a robot make a burger is generally a novelty, or the price of doing it is so expensive that it's only going to make sense in locations and at times where people, aren't logical. Think about like the rest stop where you get off, where it's hard for them to find employees because they're half an hour from the nearest exit or town or whatever it is. Well, you might see a lot of automation there. The Florida Turnpike, you wait 25 minutes at Dunkin' Donuts if there's two people in front of you because they can never find enough help. So this is going to solve problems, but we're not moving to an automated society. I always think back to those vending machines from the 80s, Jeff, where you could get hot chocolate, coffee, or soup, where it really didn't matter which one you ordered because they all came from the same spigot and tasted roughly the same. We're better than that, but there are still some problems here.
Dan, last question. I want to ask you, Apple picked up an Academy Award, I think it's called an Oscar, for Best Picture. I want to get your reaction to that, because they've spent a lot of time, a lot of money on their streaming service, Apple Plus. I think the show's name or the movie's name is Coda, C-O-D-A. I have not seen it, but just your first reaction to seeing that or hearing that, I guess, if you're watching.
Yeah, no one has seen it, and that's the problem. I don't know.
But they won.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an Oscars problem, but here's what used to happen. When an obscure movie won the Oscar, it would then become an event in theaters. Yeah, we actually wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. So like what was it, The Hurt Locker? A movie like you've never seen would get a lot of attention. It would win, and then it would do $30 or $40 million in the next few weeks of box office. In theory, a lot of people are going to watch Coda because it won the Academy Award. In reality, I'm not sure that helps Apple's bottom line. I'm not sure it really helps the filmmaker. And it sort of contributes to this new reality where a lot of movies come out and Netflix or Apple or whoever might tell you they're a hit, but unless you've seen it, it took something that was a communal experience that we were all like, hey, did you see Spider-Man? Let's talk about Spider-Man, to this sort of vague, we're not allowed to talk about Stranger Things because it released all at once and you don't know if someone watched every episode or just one. And in the case of this, I didn't even know this movie had come out, let alone that it was up for an Oscar or won an Oscar. So if we want movies to remain important, I think the box office needs to be a bigger part of it. And I know technically this year they suspended the rules about films needing a theatrical release because of the pandemic. And in usual years, this at least would have had like a New York and Los Angeles like on-screen premiere. But I'd actually like to see much stronger rules where a film has to have like some sort of nationwide theatrical release. If we want there to be movie theaters, and I think most of the big movie companies do want there to be movie theaters, we need product. It can't just be the latest, Avengers movie or the latest, How Fast, How Furious. And again, are you interested in seeing Coda? It won an Oscar. I still don't know what it's about.
No, I'm not interested in seeing it. I have Apple Plus, but I never really watch it. Dan, we're going to have to leave it there. Next week, maybe we'll get into some streaming talk. There's a lot to talk about there as there's consolidation and more content development. Dan Klein, always a pleasure chatting with you. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you again very soon.
I'll see you next week, Jeff. Thank you.
Bye, Dan.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Sunday. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, and drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, on our website. Want to see our latest content? Search our archives. Well, check out our website. That's www.broadcastretirementnetwork.com. and our streaming partners like Amazon, Roku, Samsung, over 100 different platforms to choose from. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.